There were two rocks which for centuries stood on a mountainside. These rocks were content staying where they were, and they often wondered what was on the other side of the mountain. One day, a little bird came and sat on one of those rocks. And the rock asked the bird, "Birdie, birdie, what is on the other side of the mountain?" And the bird said, "There are houses, there are cities, there are rivers, and there are valleys." And it flew off. The rocks continued to sit there for many more years. And then a little mouse came and sat on one of those rocks. And the rock asked Mouse, "What is on the other side of this mountain?" And the mouse said, "There is earth, there is grass, there is trees, there is flowers." And one rock said to the other rock, "See, that bird lied to us. This is the correct position. And we are all right sitting here." You see, this story occurred to me when I was doing some research the last 2 days to learn about literacy, because I'm the first one to admit that I have very little clue about all the stuff that you know, and when I see what has been done, I feel even more intimidated about it. And reading it, I realized that when you look at the background of literacy in India, the first statistic that comes up is what PT was saying, and that is a large proportion of the country is illiterate. I mean, we talk about the national average rate, global rate of literacy, and India 74% is below that. But you see these averages, as PT said, hide a lot of variations. They don't truly tell us the correct picture. In fact, they only show us the big picture. Now, it does not tell us, for example, that out of 1.25 billion people, the smaller picture it doesn't show that consists of 1.25 billion smaller pictures. So when you look at the total picture, you forget, or you tend to feel satisfied. Oh, it's okay, we've got 3/4 of our country is literate, and therefore we should be satisfied. The reality is that literacy in our part of the world, it's not only India, it's in South Asia, our part of the world, maybe in Africa, that a lot depends on the accident of birth. Whether you are a male or a female, where you were born, what caste you belong to, what your family's resources are, and so on. The statistics does not show that 59% of government-run schools have no drinking water, and therefore much of the illnesses that occur, and therefore much of the absenteeism is because of that. The statistics don't show that 89% of government-run schools have no toilets, and therefore the chances of graduation for many students is nil, particularly if they were female, because they tended to drop out. The statistics don't show that India has some absolutely top elite schools, classed with the best in the world. And then on the other side, we have a situation where if you're just born female, then you might not end up going to school at all. So from the above, you can see that this 74% that we talk of, if you start looking closer into the communities, if you start looking closer into the corners of the villages and the other parts, the breadth and width of India, there is hardly a town or city where the 74% remains a valid number. You find yourself in a situation which is somewhat complicated than just that one neat number of 74%. The challenges are very different, as Shekhar pointed out, the obstacles, the opportunities. But in this situation, Rotary is really like that bird and the mouse I spoke about, because you see, on the ground, We are like the mouse. We look at each community, we look at each town and city, and then from the top, we are looking at events like this, where we come together, where we work together in a much larger space. And we look at aggregates, we look at trends, we look at best practices, we look at strategies, and we try to devise a program which is suitable for the whole nature. But it's agreed, and I think you will agree with me, that much work needs to be done to build a more literate, a more prosperous India, or for that matter, a more literate and a more prosperous South Asia. Look at the sheer numbers. 26% of 1.25 billion is larger than a number of, in fact, most countries around the world. You can just be blown by that number. You can say this is all beyond us. Why should we do that? As we heard Kalyan speak a little bit earlier. Or you can look at the smaller picture and you can look at specific obstacles and begin to deal with those obstacles and start to move forward. How much we can do varies from place to place, but we will do whatever we can and well within our ability. So the meeting today is meeting the challenges of literacy. But we know that the challenges of literacy starts long before we take that first step into the first class and the first classroom that we sit in. It starts with water, it starts with sanitation, it starts with health, it starts with the obstacles of education being cleared. Children not being wanted at home for labor, for instance. Children being healthy enough to go to school. Children having sufficient nourishment to go to school, to have the energy to go to school. And we are doing it. There's no question about it. We are doing it. In the past decades, and I must repeat here what I said a little while ago in the afternoon, that no government can by itself bring up its country if its population is not willing to stand by it. And I think Rotary in India has played a consistent and a supporting role for the growth of your own country. I mean, look at the statistics. We talk about literacy being at 74%. But when the British handed over, it was 12%. And at the end of the last of the 19th century, it was only 3%. So progress has been made, and tremendous progress has been made. Look at the success stories. Kerala is at 94%. Mizoram is at 92%. Bihar is up from 39% in 1991 to 47%, and now it's now up to 63.8% in 2011. So we have achieved much, and we have to credit the government for what it's doing, but it needs to do more, and we need to do more. So when we take steps to engage the community, we also need to look at supporting the infrastructure needed to achieve what we are trying to achieve. We need to throw more resources in, and as Kalyan said, teachers is a major part of it. But again, the plus side is that the government has understood that there are places, there are states, there are cities, there are communities where education is considered a luxury. Now, I love this idea of these midday meals because there is value then for education. There's a value for going to school. There's a value for parents to send to school because on the one side, their children get more nourished by these midday meals, and on the other side, they save some money because they don't need to supply those same meals. So these are the success stories, and then there is also the potential that exists. And if you take this whole teach, I love the E part of it, the e-learning. I mean, I'm a great fan of Salman Khan and the Khan Academy. He's one of my all-time favorites. And he's a man who set the goal that world-class education should be available to anyone, anywhere, and it should be free. Salman Khan has partnered NASA. He's been supported by Bill Gates. He's worked with MIT. He's worked with the California Academy of Sciences. He's worked with the Museum of Modern Arts. I mean, he's a hit. He's something. He says you can bring the best resources to anyone who wants to learn, and there should not be an impediment. His motto is, you can learn anything. As simple as that. You can learn anything. I particularly love it because my company, we are very much convinced that in Sri Lanka, we have schools, we have systems, but I'm not sure about the quality of the syllabus, the quality of the education that we are imparting. And I'm convinced that you can bring the best professors, the best teachers into one room and put together the best syllabus, the most thoughtful syllabus, and it's only then a question of delivery to the classrooms. And today, with internet, it doesn't cost much to deliver lessons to a classroom. And we are very strongly encouraging our company to do this, and we are running up big losses, I can tell you. But I'm saying this is our contribution to our country, and one day we will transform the education system in the whole nation by what we are trying to do. You see, the internet has revolutionized education. I mean, to access learning, all you need now is a cheap laptop and an internet connection. You can learn to read online. You can learn to speak languages online. You can get the best lecture of the top professor in the world online. Of course, the internet also comes with its pitfalls. That's another subject. We'll have to have another seminar to deal with that, and we won't go into that. Now, I'm thinking, look at what the internet could have achieved, let's say 50 years ago, and I'm thinking of that South Indian mathematician, Srinivasa Ramanujan. I mean, he taught himself maths with ad hoc lessons from 2 student lodgers when he was 11 years old. He taught himself trigonometry from a copybook when he was 13 years old. He taught himself the ability to solve the cubic equation from one single lesson when he was just 15 years old. He went to Cambridge when he was 26 years old. He independently recreated modern mathematics theory. And from there, he delved into the works of his own, which we are still building up upon. Now, his career ended 95 years ago when he was just some 30-odd years old. Now just imagine if Ramanujan lived today. Imagine that he doesn't have to scribble on composition books, piles of composition books. He didn't need to be fooled by his friends who could not make out whether this fellow is a genius or he's a fraud because he mucked up all his other lessons. He would have been recognized the world over. He would have been connected to mathematicians across the globe with a click of a button. He would have had the world of mathematics on his fingertips. Now, he would not have to set sail to London and lose his health in the pursuit of education. Instead of reinventing his basic theorems, he would have had access to entire sums of human knowledge, all at the end of a cheap computer. And the community of global listeners, global learners, with whom he would have explored, and who would have benefited, and he himself would have benefited. Look at how much of India's resources, how much of its intellectual power has flown. Generations have left the country. Can we harness them now? Can we bring them back now? Because we need them to do what we are trying to do. We have to keep moving forward. We have to bring the basic theory that literally belongs to everyone. And I have faith that you can do this. You will do this. And you can do this. I'm drawing you to Martin Luther King's famous quote when he said that when you must have faith when you're taking the first step, when you can't even see the staircase. I think that's what Shekhar and Kalyan and the rest of their team did when they took that first step. I have zero expertise. I know very little. You know far more than I do. I can simply speak as a Rotarian. I can inspire you to do your best. I can help you in any way you want. At home, in your clubs, and we have to deliver this through your clubs. We can't do it by ourselves. We can't do it at Evanston. We can't do it in Calcutta or Delhi or Mumbai. We have to deliver this through the clubs. At home, in the clubs, we have the perspective of a mouse. We see the grass and the stones and the work for our day. We may be able to change a few lives, and we must do that. We must have the satisfaction that what we are doing is small. It may only be a drop in the ocean, but it is still much, and it adds up. And we can be like the bird, as we are being now, by organizing this literacy summit. We can see that the grass is part of that field. We can see that the house is part of that city. We can see that the earth is part of that mountain. We are part of something. We have so much larger than ourselves, and we have so much to achieve. And like that bird, we have that vision to see what is out there. All of you, every one of you seated here, is part of this process of building a better India with this literacy, a process of building this better South Asia with this literacy, one that is healthier, more prosperous, a nation which is more free of poverty and looks to the future with great hope. Already, you have conquered polio. Your work that you're trying to do now, with God's help, will also succeed. And like how we conquered polio, one day we shall conquer literacy. Thank you.